And welcome to Come Chat on Robyn's Couch. Today we have a very wonderful guest, Mr. Benjamin Clyburn, former CEO and co-founder of the women's luxury clothing line, Bensoni, and currently luxury real estate ambassador for Sotheby's International Realty. So, Ben, with all that said, that's a very amazing, just intro. With all that said, I would like you to kind of start with, tell us a little bit about yourself, like where you're from, educational background, likes, dislikes, just real brief. Let's just dive in and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, well, I'm originally from Baltimore. Same with, as Robyn. And, I sort of decided that I wanted to go into fashion, so that brought me to New York, and I attended the Parsons School of Design, which is the best design school.
Yes.
And I think from there it sort of really shaped a lot of different things for me as far as what my interests became, and as far as things are now, I'm doing real estate. I'm into a lot of different things like culture, arts,
Okay. So with that said, you have a very interesting story. We both went to Parsons, and at some point after graduation, you basically started a clothing line, and you were the CEO and co-founder of Bensoni. What made you, what made you and Sonia start the clothing line?
So I met my business partner Sonia at Parsons in our junior year, and we were considered, I think, the two best within our class.
Right.
And we noticed that we had very distinct styles, but that they were sort of complementing each other.
Right.
So my style was a bit more masculine, hers was feminine, and we had we had just sort of been observing our progress
right.
within the class, and we were very competitive. And
gotta be at Parsons.
Yeah, so Sonia had approached me, and she's like, what do you think about collaborating on our senior thesis together? And I'm very decisive, and I like to think about things before I make a decision. So I told her that I'll get back to her basically.
So you basically had to wait a little bit. You had to kind of really think it through, is this something that I want to do?
Right, because it's when you're working with someone else, it's, it can be tough.
Yeah.
You have your own opinion, they have their own, so, but I did that in a way that, because I know that our final sort of project was coming up, and I wanted to see what she was going to do. Right,
where her head was at as far as ideas, you wanted to make sure, it was a
good fit, right? It was a good fit. Right. So essentially, I saw her project, and I was pretty impressed, and I was like, I think that it could be, I think that her style of design could definitely complement my aesthetic.
Right. So when you guys so you did your senior thesis together, you realized that okay, this person's a good fit, and at some point you guys go into business with each other, starting Bensoni.
Right.
So when you guys, being that you had kind of two different aesthetics to a certain extent, but yet they still merge together, if that makes sense. Where did you guys draw your inspiration from when you were designing? Who was the one that mainly drew the inspiration, or was it a collaborative effort and you brought it together? How did that work?
Inspiration for us was always a collaborative effort. We would draw it from a variety of different sources. It could come from architecture, or a museum exhibit that we saw, or a painting, but I think that as we progressed as partners, I found that Sonia was very sort of, she's an Aries, so she's very so she has a very whimsical personality, very open, and I found that her ideas were very interesting. Okay. So we would kind of run with it. It was very organic, but in our senior year, we structured our senior project kind of as we would do a business,
Oh, I see.
so that kind of like inspired us to make that leap.
And to actually like take
into actually doing a business.
Entrepreneurial route and like, okay, we have a senior thesis, we worked together in school, let's start this line. It was very like, it was organic, like it made sense.
It was organic, yeah.
What was the other step?
And and at the end of our senior year, we I mean, we were just fresh out of school.
Yeah.
We had, we were very aggressive, and we met with fashion director of Barney's.
Wow.
Like fashion director of Bloomingdale's. I mean, we just called these people up, and we took our collection over there, and they gave us feedback. And I think the most constructive feedback that we had received was from Julie Gilhart, who was the fashion director at Barney's at the time. And our minds were kind of set that we were going to go into doing more high-end. And Julie was like, you guys are young, like you should maybe think about doing contemporary, but contemporary designer.
Right.
And, we were just kind of like, I don't know, you know what I mean? Just
you had your mindset like high-end.
We had our mindset on that. That's sort of like because when you're doing contemporary and you're doing designer, there are different things that dictate the design, like fabric, so we were trained in like very expensive, high quality fabrics. But we had actually taken about we took a year off after we, graduated, and we thought about it. We sort of did some soul searching, and we were slowly building a business plan. And we were sort of, we were looking around to see like where there was a void in the market.
Exactly.
And
just very smart.
yeah, and when we started, that's when like Philip Lim had started, Alexander Wang, and there was this new market that was being created, which was called contemporary designer.
Yeah.
So it was not the lower end of contemporary, but it bridges the gap between contemporary and designer, so it's contemporary designer. And that's where we found that,
that's where you kind of
that was our sweet spot,
Wow.
So we wrote a business plan, we received financing, financial backing, and yeah, and then we started. We did like a very small like capsule collection, and it had a really great response, and our sales had just taken off from there. Yeah.
So with your sales, like this is great information for those who are watching, people who are really thinking about taking that entrepreneurial route and I want to start my own business. You just really gave them basically a plethora of information, like how to get it started, the fact that you reached out to Barney's and those types of stores and not waiting for somebody to discover you is the best thing you can do.
Right.
So with that said, once you started making your sales, I'm curious, where could people find Bensoni? Could they find it just in the U.S. or was it they can go overseas and find it? Where could we buy Bensoni?
Bensoni was carried everywhere, like Barney's, Saks, Nordstrom's. We were in about 150 specialty boutique stores, throughout the U.S. Harvey Nichols, United Arrows, tons of stores in Japan. So it's really interesting and it's cool. Yeah.
That is amazing. Imagine how you go from school, designing, collaborating with somebody,
it's an actual business, yeah.
Actual business, just the two of you. You make your connections, reaching out, really being proactive, and then boom, your line is being sold in different stores. That's any entrepreneur, design, fashion student, whoever wants to take it in that direction. That's their dream. It sounds easy, but I know how much work and effort went into it. But this is it's very helpful information. So with that said, I'm curious. So being an entrepreneur, having your own business, working with somebody, collaborating, what were some of, this is a two-part question, what were some of the most positive and negative aspects of owning your own business? Starting with the positive.
Positive is always, the freedom.
Yes.
The freedom to sort of, go on your own whim as far as exploring your own ideas, sort of setting a pace for what you want to do, your vision, and not necessarily someone else's vision.
Right.
And also, it's your name is on the garments, and
Exactly.
that's very fulfilling. You know, I mean, you are creating things that people love, and you're seeing them wear, and
it's very rewarding. I can only imagine like you see somebody walking down the street, it's like, oh my God, this is a dress up designer, you know.
Right,
it's just really fulfilling.
Yeah, I mean, the first time we saw someone wear it, I mean, we kind of like freaked out, and it was just, it was surreal, you know, because as a designer, you have all these sort of insecurity sometimes, like when you are creating an actual garment, like does it fit properly? Does this fabric actually make sense for this?
Right,
you know?
all those things going on. Fashion designing is not like an easy just sketching. Oh, this is great. It's a lot of that goes into the mechanics of really thinking about your customer and how you want them to look when they go out the door. It's not a sketching. Like, oh, this is great. It's a lot that goes into it.
Yeah.
So that's okay. So that's the positive. Any more positives?
I don't know. You know, I guess there are a lot of positives. I would say. I mean,
basically, it's like the positive really kind of boiled down to you are setting the pace for your life, and it's manifested through you're owning your clothing line and designing. You set the time frame. You set who's going to be wearing it, how's going to be wearing it.
It's your vision.
It's your vision.
Right.
Now, what we really want to know is what are the negative aspects of it?
The negative aspects that I found personally is that it's hard to sort of appreciate collections in fashion because it moves at such a very fast pace.
Right.
And I mean, you put 150% into doing one collection, and you have to think about one or two collections in advance.
Exactly.
You know,
kind of honestly, like always designing. Your mind is like in several different places.
Yeah, it's in several different places, and it's hard to really appreciate what you're doing at that time.
Not really taking that project in, because while you're doing that, you're like, okay, now I have to hop back on spring. It's like the fabric for fall. Like it's
exactly. It's kind of like you want to just sort of focus on one thing.
Yeah.
You want to make it perfect, and I mean, I'm a perfectionist in that way. Like I want it to be perfect, but sometimes it's kind of like, well, we have deadlines. Fashion Week is coming up. This collection, all the samples have to be done by this date, and then we ship them off to the sales showroom, and we don't see them for another 2 or 3 months.
Exactly.
So,
now, with you saying like being a perfectionist, I was just thinking like, with all the hard work and things that you put into it, and you're trying to be a perfectionist to make it perfect, do you think even when like it's time, like the deadline, you hit a deadline, you're like, okay, this has to go out now. Do you think that how it ends up just really is what is the perfection aspect of it? Does that make sense? Like with the final product, even though you like, oh, I wanted to add one more button or add one more whatever, and you couldn't for whatever reason due to timing, would you consider what actually ends up being on the floor, like that's actually perfect, like this is how it's supposed to be? Did you ever like at the end, did you ever see it in that way?
we worked in a very sort of organic way, where sometimes it's kind of like, something will come out so great that we're kind of like, how do we do that?
Yeah.
Because the first step as far as like in building a collection is, you're doing patterns, and then you have muslins.
Right.
So, we have a whole rack of muslins that we're working from, in terms of the collection. And then it goes into fabrication, which is which was sort of like our very, strong point. So we like to do a lot of different combos and, mixing and matching of fabrics. And that's when you feel like the garment actually comes to life. And sometimes it's like, you picked this fabric 9 months ago, and it's actually a perfect fit for that body. And it's just
it just happens.
It happens that way. And we learn to sort of embrace that and work in sort of that organic way, and then, we would work in stages though. Like if something needed a particular button, we would make sure that it's fabricated, and then we would see how other garments and things are coming together, and then we would kind of, try and perfect
making
it.
things work, perfecting it to the best of your abilities, and just, all right, once it's out there on that runway or in the store, like that's what it is, and that's how we formulated. We're able to put out these collections. So, with this clothing line, I know you get introduced to, different types of models. Like, who would you say the models that you've worked with so far? I'm just curious, like, were there any models that you worked with that wore your clothes that really inspired you? like that were fun to work with?
Chanel Iman.
Oh.
I love Chanel. She's just a friend of mine, and I think it's like when you see your creation on, a beautiful model, or anyone for that matter, it really sort of comes to life,
right.
And her personality too. Like she definitely brings things life. To life. She brings life, to clothing, and we always she was kind of a muse for us, and yeah.
So not only did she wear your clothes and model and bring us life, but she was a muse. You can look at her like, okay,
right.
kind of
yeah, like when we're doing a collection, we're thinking about her, or also Olivia Palermo, but she's kind of like, she used to be more model, but now she's more actress.
Right.
And she would wear everything in the collection.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So yeah, I mean, you just have like a really great experience. Like it seems like it was just like everything was kind of like an even and just like smooth transition from school to designing, taking the entrepreneurial route, and working with different people. So for those who are watching who are interested in starting their own clothing line, what would be one of like the best pieces? We could like sentences together. What one piece of advice would you give that person just starting out? Like the most core piece of advice that you're really gonna have to keep this in mind when you're starting your own collection?
I think it's important to learn your craft, and you have to put yourself out there to learn as much as possible. You're not. I found early on that you're not going to learn everything that you need to know in school, and it requires hard work. I mean, when my partner and I started our line, we were coming from school and we didn't have that exposure to like the actual production of samples and a collection. So what we did was we basically stayed in the factory for 18 hours when we made our samples. And the factory that we were in, they were doing production and samples for like Marc Jacobs, Cocoon. So we were able to kind of see the process, We were able to kind of see how things ran from a production standpoint, time samples, when fabric needs to come in. So just from that, we learned a lot in terms of like quality expectations, So it's like, you really have to try and learn as much as possible,
Getting your feet wet, there are going to be like some ups and downs and mistakes, but all those things, it's just like a big learning process.
Right. I mean, you just kind of have to, get in the water and start swimming.
Get in the water and start swimming. No life jackets. Okay. But, okay, so that's excellent advice. I hope people are taking notes out there. So with that said, now, going from CEO, co-founder to a luxury women's clothing line. Now you are a real estate ambassador, a luxury real estate ambassador for Sotheby's. I'm curious, when did you decide it was time to like move on to the next chapter of your life as far as your career?
I mean, real estate really is the ultimate luxury brand, and they're just. I've always viewed fashion from a lifestyle perspective. So when we were creating and designing collections, we were thinking about like, who's this customer? Who's this girl? Where does she live? Where is she going? Where does she eat? Like, what does she do for a living? What is her lifestyle? Right. And that's how in real estate, it's exactly the same thing, but it's just sort of on the flip side of like, your client's looking for a condo or
a place to live,
where she's going to live, that suits her lifestyle or his lifestyle, and that's
cool. Like you had just hearing all of this. I mean, you told me bits and pieces from just this conversation, and just like hearing it in full story. Like it's really amazing how you can go from one aspect of your life doing one thing, and you put your mind to it, you can go to something else. So with that said, so far working for Sotheby's and transitioning into real estate, what so far has been one of the highlights of your career so far, just doing the real estate? It's something that really this is awesome.
During real estate, I mean, the types of people that you interact with. I mean, you are really at the upper end of society, the types of people that you meet. And, you know, I feel like, you know, you see, you know, when you're not involved in a business like real estate, you sort of see very nice houses that are very expensive, that are like, you know, $40 million, or you see people driving certain cars, or, you know, flying private jets, and you kind of wonder, who are these people, or what do they do?
And how they got to the position where they can do these things and have these things.
Right. And then you actually are interacting with them, and you're meeting them, and, you know, working with celebrities, and, you know, just, it's exciting. I mean, it's a very exciting process to be involved in.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
It is,
Wow,
yeah.
real estate is just, seems like something really cool, and it seems like it's right up your alley. You were already interested in architecture and things. Sounds like your life so far, everything has just been flowing like organically the way it's supposed to.
It's been organic, yeah. I mean,
awesome.
and when you, I mean, think about like Ralph Lauren, you know, I mean, he has the fashion, you think about the lifestyle, Ralph Lauren home, everything just sort of flows into each other, you know, and I think that's, I'm at a place where I'm very happy with the decision to move into real estate, and yeah, I feel great about it.
So with that said, we're coming to the end of our show, and I'm adding a new segment where I'm allowing the guests to ask me a pop question. Now, these are the rules about the pop question.
Okay.
You can ask me any question that comes to mind. I can answer it or not. So I'm going to give you a couple minutes to think. You know, I'm going to do a little countdown, kind of 5 seconds. I'm going to count on my fingers. And if whatever comes to mind, you can ask me. I might answer right back.
Right.
So here's the countdown, people. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Are you the next Oprah?
Am I the next Oprah? I would say yes, actually. I am the next Oprah. I'm enjoying the aspect of getting to know people and their life stories. I love to talk, and I feel as though I have a great personality. I mean, Oprah might be able to learn some stuff from me. Just saying. That's a joke, Oprah. But actually, you might. But I think that as far as like taking this, I never thought in a million years that I would want to do something like this.
Sure.
This is just like, you know, like, oh, let me just try it. But I like it. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
And I figure, depending on how far I go with it. And so thank you everybody for watching again. And I would like to thank Mr. Benjamin Clyburn for coming on to the show. Thank you so much. You've just given us a ton of information, and I appreciate it. Hopefully you'll be back on scene with any new endeavors.
I think it might have to be a part 2.
Yeah, it'll definitely have to be a part 2. I'm sure the audience is curious about whatever your next endeavors are with real estate and anything else you plan on doing. I wish you tons of success and luck and all that great stuff. And again, thank you for coming on, and thank you for watching. Come chat on Robyn's Couch. Bye. I wasn't looking down too much, but oh.
But do you miss it? Do you miss that world?
You know, I don't look back. It's just like I have, you know, I did that. I'm very satisfied with what we achieved, and you know, it was great. And you know, fashion will always be a part of me, but I feel like it will always still be there. You know, and I feel like I'm onto something that's like bigger, that's more exciting, more rewarding financially, more fulfilling. Another issue that I had, you know, as far as like with fashion is that, well, being a designer, is that we kind of had, you know, middlemen where we weren't always able to interact directly with who we're designing for. You know, like we would, you know, have, you know, salespeople or sales team, you know, that are selling to retailers, and then retailers are the middlemen between customers, you know?
Right.
So we weren't able to kind of, sometimes it's just like that disconnect, you know? Whereas like in real estate, it's like, you know, you are a part of your client, you know, like it's just, you feel it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then I have a lot of fashion clients, you know, so it's
Right.
like, and I get what they're looking for and understand sort of like what their needs are, you know, and, but you know, I keep things open. I mean, I may, you know, right now I'm in the phase where I'm like, I just want to sell, you know, I like numbers, and I've always, you know, been like that, but, you know, I know that I'm going to transition back into wanting to create and design, and that's why I know that I'm going to want to be a developer, you know. And I think that if I were to sort of go back into fashion, I might want to do menswear, because I feel like I've already done, you know, women's.
So men's just seems like the natural.
Men's is just natural progression, yeah. And you know, I've been there, done that with women's, you know.
That's
and it's
awesome. Like the fact that you say, been there, done that. Now you're moving on to the next thing.
You have to, yeah.
And you're still able to have like the creative elements as far as like using the knowledge that you learned from fashion and applying that to real estate. You're coming in contact with some of the same type of clientele. That's cool, man. Like I'm looking forward to. If you do men's, I'm definitely looking forward to it, because I know that it will be something awesome.
Yeah.
Men's Sony was a great line. I was looking at your press kit and just how far it went, and just
yeah. And I mean, there's still a window of opportunity there for us to, you know. I mean, there's so many. You know, you live once, and there's so many things that you can do. And
you inspired me.
I remind myself. I remind myself of that daily. Like you just. You know, you can't stay complacent and just, you have to evolve, and you can't hold yourself back, and you have to do what you want. And it may not make sense to people, you know, sometimes. And, you know, I think that, you know, some people have not understood why I wanted to go from fashion to real estate, but they also don't understand that it's so many similarities.
Yeah. And it's your life. Like, the thing is like, the good thing is that even though other people didn't understand or maybe had like an opinion about what you needed to do, you knew what was right for you, and you just went out and pursued it. And like, that's, I think a lot of people have to understand that you can't really listen to other people. If your heart is telling you something you really feel as though you can achieve it, then by all means, I guess you just do it.
You have to be tunnel focused, and you know, you have to step out. Yeah, like I said, you have to get in the water and start swimming. It's not about just putting a foot in and testing the water.
Testing, like, oh, is it warm? Is it hot? Is it safe?
Yeah,
if you're
gonna do it,
it's like what you're doing, Robyn, with the team.
Yeah, because I don't know really what the hell I'm doing. So the fact that I like to talk, and I got a couch, and I'm like, okay, I'll create a graphic for it and make it interesting as possible, and just I'm always very curious about how people are able to, you know, achieve their goals and what they're doing to do it. And I think that this can be very inspirational for not only just myself, but like for people who are like, I want to do something, I don't know how, I just wish I could hear somebody who's just doing it.
You know, I actually have another really good friend. His name's AJ Crimson. He's like a celebrity makeup artist, and it's funny because he was in town recently, and we met up with some other friends, and he had reminded me that I had inspired him to create a business that he created, and I didn't really know, but I was just sort of like,
you never know who you inspire. Like, you could say one thing, and like, people remember that. You hit home with somebody, and they're like, he's right, and like, you never know. Like, your friend comes back later, and like, no, he really inspired me to do this.
And he was like, you know, I went back home that day, and he was like, I was just like, you know, if he can do it, I can do it. You know what I mean? And I was just telling him, like, you have to, if you're going to do it, you have to do it. There's no talking involved, you know, it's just, you know?
Just things just seem harder than what they really are.
Yeah, sometimes it's a lot
scary.
Of things. Scary.
The main thing that sort of inhibits people is fear, you know, and it's like, you know, fear can hold you back for a very long time, and that time can be useful for you to be putting it in motion. I mean, you know, you have to embrace the fact that, you know, you're going to make mistakes, and that, you know, it's a learning process, it's a learning curve, but if you don't do it, you're going to eventually regret not doing it too.
You don't want to be